All right, Swope here. Going to make videos of each section, so hopefully you can watch the parts you need, or if you're working through this, hopefully maybe it gives you a little bit of help. But this first section, we're going to be graphing these quadratics, but more so this section is really about converting from form to form. Depending on what form you have, finding a piece of information that kind of goes with that form. So starting with this first row, just so you know, your goal is to always get standard form because standard form lets you get vertex form and factored form. So if you don't have standard form, it should be your first priority. If you have standard form, you can use it to find either one. You can kind of go whatever order you'd like. So this first one, since they give us vertex form, our vertex would be the opposite of the inside. The outside stays the same. And to get standard form, we need to kind of multiply this out. So x minus 3 squared, remember, is just x minus 3 times x minus 3. This minus 4 is just going to kind of hang on the outside. But first thing you want to do is FOIL. So distribute this x, that would be x squared minus 3x. Then we'll distribute this negative 3, that would be also minus 3x plus 9. Pop up, and then bring down the minus 4. And now we just need to kind of clean this up. And I'm going to just write my answer here in the standard form box. But you would have x squared minus 3x would be minus 6x. And then you'd have plus 9. Oops, not plus 9 because that plus 4, or sorry, minus 4. So sorry, it would be a plus 5. And just to kind of illustrate, that's a crappy 9, but that plus 9 and this minus 4 would give you plus 5. So that is our standard form. So standard form isn't really good in terms of graphing, as we've seen even in this class. But one thing that standard form can give you is the y-intercept. Your y-intercept is always going to be 0, comma, and it's whatever your c value or whatever your constant is. So this would just be 0, 5. Not something you really necessarily need to know, but the reason this is, I was trying to give myself a little more space, is to be on the y-axis, like you're graphing something. That means you're not going left or right. So like any dot on the y-axis is going to be 0 in some constant. Like that might be like 0, 3. This point down here might be 0, negative 3. So you're basically plugging in 0 for x, which is just going to give you the c part because the x parts will just be 0 or cancel out essentially. So standard form, though, gives you the y-intercept. So just 0, comma, your c. So that one, really not a whole lot of thinking. So to get that factored form, we're going to use what we just got for standard form. So we're going to really look at this. It's up to you. I'm just going to copy my standard form over. And since our a value is 1, we should be able to just factor this like normal. So what multiplies to 5 adds up to negative 6? Well, that would be x minus, sorry, 5, x minus 1. So then your x-intercepts would be like your solution. So you would just need to solve this. So you would get x equals positive 5, x equals positive 1. And then on your graph, we can just use these different points we've got. So my y-intercept 0, 5 would be here. This is kind of hard on the iPad, at least from my boomer self. 3, negative 4 would be down here. And then we can plot the x-intercepts as well. So we'd have an x-intercept at 5. I hope I didn't miscount any of these dots. And x equals 1. And that's usually probably enough points to see what's going on. Like a graph would look something like this. I mean, you can get more points if you really need to, but you can just graph any of these forms in your graphing calculator and just go to your table if you wanted more points. But I mean, typically, I mean, you're going to have 3 or 4 points or similar to that. Usually it's going to be enough to see what's going on. And honestly, the graph myself, I mean, all I'm looking for is you plotted the points you got. I'm not looking for a great sketch, but I mean, like I said, if you want to use your graphing calculator or if you just even want to plug in other points, feel free. Your domain for these will always be all real numbers because parabolas always go left and right forever. The range, you'll have to kind of look at your vertex because that's either going to be the highest or the lowest point. So in this case, it starts at -4 and it goes up forever. So that would be infinity. All right, let's just look at another one. If they give you standard form, I mean, first off, we can get our y-intercept. So it's 0, comma, your c. So our c in this one's -5. So to get vertex, you have to get vertex form. So we're going to have to complete the square to do that. So we'll group up our x parts, leave a little bit of space. That -5 just stays on the outside. So hopefully, I mean, you might even know it by now. To complete your square, you have to do your b/2 squared. So that would just be 2 squared r4. Whatever you put inside your parentheses, you have to do the opposite on the outside. I'm just going to go ahead and erase this just so I have the space. So then you can factor that trinomial. That would just be x plus 2 squared. -5 minus 4 would be -9. So our vertex for this one would be -2, -9. To get factored form, like I said, we're starting with our standard form, just like we started to get to vertex form. So what multiplies into -5 adds up to 4. Not that different than the last one, except our signs. It would be x plus 5, x minus 1, because 5 times -1 is -5, but 5 plus -1 also gives you that 4. Um, and since our a is 1 for these, we don't have to do any grouping or anything weird like that. So we would just get x is -5, just solve those binomials, -5, and then x equals +1. So if we graph this, I'm going to start with the x-intercepts at 1 and -5. Our y-intercept is down at -5. The vertex, I don't think is going to fit. How far does this go? Yeah, I think it goes to 8 if I counted that right. So it would just be like a little bit off the graph. But same idea, the domain would still be all real numbers because any parabola is going to go left and right forever. But your range, the lowest it goes is your vertex. The lowest it goes is -9, and this one also goes up forever. So hopefully that helps a little bit with this graph. And I think this section might be, it might throw you off when you first see it, but hopefully once you like see how to do it, I honestly don't think this should be I think it should be a good part for most people on that test when we take it later this week.